So now that we have our electrodes, we have our leads, we need to know lead placement. Again, we have 6 chest leads or precordial leads. Let's take a look at their locations. Now, the first one starts with what's called V1. And in reference to V1, you're going to find what's called intercostal spaces for location. In between each rib here, you have an empty space. These empty spaces are called intercostal spaces. So if we were looking at application for lead 1, first I want you to keep in mind that we're looking at our patient in reverse. So we're looking at the right of the sternum, even though it's showing on the left in the photograph. So to the right of the sternum, this is going to be our very first lead and electrode that we would put into place. It's going to be 4 spaces down. So in those 4 intercostal spaces, they are here. You have 1 space here, 2 spaces here, 3 spaces here, and this is going to be your 4th intercostal space. Very easy to feel for these intercostal spaces if you start with the patient's clavicle. And if you're feeling for the clavicle, you can feel an indentation as you roll your finger down from that patient's clavicle. If you can't feel that indentation there for whatever reason, you can use your finger as proper spacing for your first intercostal space. And you're going to continue to do that for each space using the finger or feeling for that indentation representing that intercostal space. So 4 intercostal spaces down on the right side of our sternum here, or our breastplate, we're going to apply V1. Now V2 is going to be very easy because you've already done the hard work. So you found V1 by feeling for your 4 intercostal spaces. V2 is simply on the opposite side, so on the left side of the sternum, directly across from V1. Now we have our V1 and our V2 electrodes and leads in place. Now we're going to move on for V3. Now our instructions for V3 say that it can be found midway between V2 and V4. So in order to apply V3, we need to apply V4 so that we can determine the midway. So let's go down and look at our instructions for V4. V4 is going to be in the 5th intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. So mid-clavicular is here, right in the middle of the clavicle, straight down, and we're still filling for those intercostal spaces. And instead of the 4th intercostal space for our V1 or V2, we are now feeling for 1 additional space, which would give us the 5th intercostal space. So mid-clavicular, 5th intercostal space, there is our V4 electrode. Now we can go back and read our instructions again for V3, which then says it's between or midway between 2 and 4. Now we have our 2 in place, we found our 4, we can then go ahead and apply our V3. So as of now, we have V1 through V4 already put into place. That leaves us with 2 more chest leads. We're going to look at directions for V5, and V5 says that it is the 5th intercostal space between V4 and V6. So we're in the same position that we were previously. We need to find the position for V6 so that we can then apply V5. So V6 instruction says 5th intercostal space at the mid-axillary line. Mid-axillary is going to be in the middle of the axilla, in the middle of the armpit there. So 5th intercostal space, mid-axillary, that gives us our V6. And now we can go back and read our instructions again for V5. And V5 is the 5th intercostal space between 4 and 6. Once you follow all these instructions, what you should see is that you have your V1 through your V6 already in place. Now you can attach your limb leads in the same areas on both legs and arms, attach all of your leads, and you're good to go in running your first ECG.